All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of our podcast for TAGaming, Titan Adventure Gaming, wherever you guys want to read it or call it. Have Ron with us again today, hosting, and I'm Randy. We plan on having another one of our guys with us tonight. David and Ross cannot be with us tonight, so they will be deeply missed. Right now, while we're waiting on our guests, me and Ryan have been talking about football. We're talking about different schemes. The big thing right now is Urban Meyer going to the NFL, and people saying, oh, he can't put a team together under a budget like he can in college with having to recruit people and things like that. So, we've brought up about Ryan. We've talked about Nick Saban going to Miami, not having control. We've talked about John Gruden briefly, that one of the possible things was he didn't get the control he wanted when he was interviewing for the Tennessee Volunteer football job, so he decided to go on that. So would you want to elaborate a little bit on what we're talking about with Trevor Lawrence and building a team and having control? Just kind of go on that little spiel that you were telling me a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, think about, talk about, I guess, I don't know if you consider it control or not, but, talking about how these guys, they come into the NFL and, like these number one draft picks, and you want to build around them and whatnot. And was bringing up before the season, not before this season, but earlier this season, he was supposed to go to, or potentially was going to go to the Jets because the Jets were going to tank for him, which didn't happen. The Jets have won their last 2 games against playoff caliber teams, and you can make of that whatever you will. But sometimes these coaches, when they come in, or when you have these guys that come in and they're number one guys and everything, and for me, what it comes down to is, are you prepared for how they play? If you want to play, if you want to use them to their full potential, do you keep them in the same, or do you keep them in your style of play? Because what if they don't play the game that way? What if their style of play is different? What are you supposed to do then? And I don't know the Jets scheme at all. I don't watch the Jets. I don't particularly like the Jets. I've never particularly liked the Jets, and that's just that. No offense to Jet fans out there that might hear this one day, but you don't. Let's say that they. I know it's not what they do, but let's say that Trevor Lawrence is drafted to an RPO team, and that's not what he's been doing. At least not to my knowledge, anyways. It's not what he's been doing. He's a drop back pass kind of guy. I'm sure he can run. I think I've seen him run a couple times, but he reminds me a lot. The little I have seen him, and it has been little that I have seen him, he reminds me a lot of someone like Tom Brady. Maybe it's the height. I don't know. But, you're not going to put Tom Brady in an RPO scheme and go, all right, take off, bud.
Yeah. Well, and then with the Jets being possibly 2-14, you feel like they will make some adjustments, whether it's a defensive person, offensive people. So then you might get somebody in there that says, oh, we're going to pound ground, or we're going to go spread, and talking about the scheme things, like Tom Brady. I still don't consider him the best quarterback ever. Did he hold the touchdown record? And has he thrown for a lot of yards? Well, for one thing, he's played for 50 years. So if it's just like someone playing so many years in basketball. You're going to score all those points. The year that he had the 50 touchdowns, he had Randy Moss, who also broke that touchdown record in a season by Jerry Rice. But since then, he hasn't gotten, I would say, near it where you're threatening it like Mahomes has. But the yardage and the wins and stuff like that, I still look at it. he won the Super Bowls, but there's a lot of conspiracy theories behind it. And also then he won these last couple, and you can say, oh, he's won that. Well, Joe Montana didn't play for 20 years. Joe Montana never lost. Joe Montana never threw an interception. Like everybody's like, oh, he's got more touchdown passes in the Super Bowls. Well, he's played 10 of them. It took him like 6 games to break the touchdown record that Joe Montana held, And so, my thing is, I know this is getting off subject, but so now do you say Dan Marino's not one of the greatest ever because he never won a Super Bowl? So is Eli Manning better than Dan Marino? Is Trent Dilfer, Joe Flacco, are they better than Dan Marino? You get at that. But back to Tom Brady and the scheme. You have, like his backup was Matt Castle. Matt Castle stepped in, did great for him that season. I think he went 10-3. I think I'd have to look up the statistics. Just kind of unprepared for that tonight. But Matt Castle signs a deal with New England. Okay, he's average. Then you don't hear about Matt Castle again. Now Garoppolo left. He fits the system Kyle Shanahan does. Everything's, he's not going to be the quarterback, for 49ers. They've won like 80% of their games with him. And he's just had a rough bout this year. Like he blew out his knee that one time, missed all the year. He was healthy all last year, and then he's had the high ankle sprain, which he never got over. High ankle sprain is hard to get over. It just is.
Yeah.
But they've won with him. So you have to give him at least some more shots. He's still young. It's not like he's 35 and you need to move on from him because you're not doing very well with Nick Mullins. And Bethard, you've had your shots with him when Garoppolo was down 2 years ago when you went like 3-13. So like it's like the system things. Like me and somebody were talking about this the other day. You have Christian McCaffrey. He can catch. He can run. He gets about 120 all-purpose yards. I don't know what the statistics are. I just know he gets a lot of points in fantasy. But, he's like a LaDainian Tomlinson and a Marshall Faulk, that a Ray Rice kind of guy. And then you have Mike Davis, but Mike Davis really isn't a receiver. So you have McCaffrey who gets all these yards, and Mike Davis. Now, then again, McCaffrey is an athlete. He can do a bunch of stuff. But you think, if that's your scheme, to have the running back very much involved, to have a backup that can't come in and do that job when McCaffrey goes down, then you're damaged goods. You know what I mean? Like Taysom Hill can do a lot more things than Drew Brees can. But Taysom Hill has a good coach who knows this is what I need to do to have Taysom Hill take over. You know what I mean? Just like so now we're going back to Urban Meyer real quick. Urban Meyer was at Utah. Do you remember who his quarterback was in Utah?
I honestly don't.
Alex Smith, who his first couple years was horrible in the NFL until Jim Harbaugh took over, and he became a name for the 49ers. And then you see what he did with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then you've seen what he did, with the Redskins. But Urban Meyer, and Alex Smith was kind of a run-pass option kind of guy. Now, he didn't run like Kaepernick. That's the reason why Kaepernick got to play. But he kind of did some things, and I think they went undefeated that one year when the last year's Meyer was there. But Urban Meyer goes to Florida. He has Chris Leak, one of the nation's top throwing quarterbacks. Chris Leak didn't run much. He was a pocket passer. Now, he could run, if you remember him on some of the times that he would play.
Yeah.
But he could still throw. Well, then they get a freshman named Tim Tebow who would come in and do those little scheme plays. Come in, do a little goal line thing, the little step up and drop back, the little jump pass, But then he goes into passing the ball a lot. So now he's got Tim Tebow, who's going to mix it up and get rushed for 22 touchdowns, whatever he did that one year. So I have Tim Tebow, I have Percy Harvin, I have these guys, not the receivers, not the passing quarterback type. I have a running quarterback that can mix it up. and I have Percy Harvin that can play some running back and put the ball in his hands at all times. And, that's what he did. He changed it up, And then, you saw what he did in Ohio State when he took over. And so I feel like you were saying, it's all about the schemes. You could put Trevor Lawrence in that scheme, and all of a sudden he stinks. And now he's 5 years gone, and now he goes and gets a backup job for Patrick Mahomes, and also Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, and all of a sudden he steps in and throws for 30 touchdowns in 10 games. And then he goes off and signs a deal with the Raiders, and their scheme doesn't fit. There's quarterbacks that can go in and just, there's anybody that can go in and do their job. Peyton Manning, he goes to Denver and makes Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker and Julius Thomas, for that matter, superstars. And Julius Thomas goes off to Jacksonville Jaguars because, hey, I'm the best tight end in the league, and you never hear from him again. Eric Decker goes to the Jets, and he's supposed to be the main guy. And I don't even know if he plays anymore. Demaryius Thomas, Peyton Manning retires, and he's the go-to guy, but you don't have anybody that can throw to him. Brett Favre did that. He went to Minnesota and made Bajante Shinko, whatever his name is, the tight end, made him a fantasy stud the 2 years he was there. And then Brett Favre retires for the 17th time, and you never hear from that guy again. It like you said, it's all about the scheme. And if I don't know. I kind of would like to see what would happen to Eli Manning. If you remember, he got drafted by the Chargers, and his dad threw a fit and said San Diego is not the place for my son to be. It needs to be in New York with the second pick. And they still drafted him. Then they did a trade, so he went off and had his career with the Giants. So who knows? He might have won more Super Bowls. He might not have done anything. There's no telling what would happen. Just like if Drew Brees if the Miami Dolphins would have took a chance with Drew Brees. They said, we don't want to take anybody with reconstructive shoulder surgery. So he goes to the Saints. And then, like they say, the rest is history. But I just don't know. What are the quarterbacks or the main quarterbacks coming out right now?
Coming in from college?
Yeah.
There's there is a probability of you have guys like Kyle Trask could be coming out. Mac Jones is coming out, most likely. I mean, these guys could always say, not this year, but those are two guys that are coming out.
They all get the eligibility thing for next year.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, if we had to, I don't know. I know one guy that is for sure coming out, but I don't know where he'll get drafted, and he's just a toss-up, and that's Felipe Franks.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming out. I know there's some guys that are. I know there's other guys that are coming out too that I've heard their names, but I don't remember who exactly they are. But you've got a nice quarterback field this year in the draft, or potential quarterback field.
I've heard some about the Trey Lance guy from North Dakota State, which they've usually got pretty decent, quarterback situation up there. Carson Wentz was pretty good, but I hate the situation he's in. But you got Justin Fields, which I kind of see him. It's kind of like a Russell Wilson kind of quarterback. He's got a good little arm on him. He can scramble if need be. But I don't know. You just never know about small quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I
forgot about Justin Fields. I feel like he'll probably be also coming out this year.
But,
As a quarterback that I don't know his plans. I was surprised that when he left last year, he was going to be able to have another year of eligibility under his belt. But Nick Starkel at San Diego State, I mean, I think they went undefeated this year, if I'm correct. I could be wrong. No way. Really.
Well, there's also Texas quarterback Sam Ellinger.
Yeah.
Texas A&M Kellen Mond. You know.
Oh yeah, Kellen Mond. I think he'll probably also come out.
Well, that's just some of the main ones I've heard the names of.
I would imagine that they're coming. That he's coming out this year too. I don't know about anybody else in the SEC that would go pro or that can go pro.
Yeah, I know.
This year, I mean, he has, like you take like Felipe Franks. You know, Arkansas didn't have the greatest season in the world. He has his Florida time. And how good he actually played at Arkansas. I don't know why I said San Diego State. I meant San Jose State. And yes, Jose State actually went undefeated this year. So I don't know if they're playing in a bowl game, but they went undefeated in conference and winning their conference championship.
Yeah.
And Nick Starkel had a really good year.
Well, side note to that, how about Coastal Carolina going all that way to losing to Liberty in the bowl game?
I'm sort of not surprised because it's Hugh Freeze.
It is Hugh Freeze. That is a big thing to say, hey, I'm still here. I've served my justice being at a smaller school. I'm ready for a head coaching job.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to go. I don't know if he'll go to an SEC school, though.
Well, I don't know about SEC school, but I could just see him.
I mean,
going somewhere. Even a Coastal Carolina coach, you know, he's been successful wherever he's been.
He's another guy, Hugh Freeze, that we were talking about before this started. At every time the coaching searches begin, you know, his name is generally at the top of the list, and that's for literally every single SEC school that's had a coaching change in the past 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Mississippi State, their people were thinking Hugh Freeze. Arkansas, we were thinking Hugh Freeze. I think Ole Miss fans were thinking, like, let's give him another shot. Let's give him another go. South Carolina thought he was going to be a done deal. Auburn thought he was going to be a done deal. Now Tennessee fans.
Well, Tennessee, when they signed Pruitt, the first thing they were talking about was there was talks about Hugh Freeze being an offensive coordinator. That way he could get his name back out there. You know? I remember that going on. Let's move on real quick to NFL. There is something that has been bothering the crap out of me for years, and then now more recently. First off, and you probably know where I'm going with this because I've probably had this conversation with you. So you have the intentional grounding rule, which by rules, if you're within the tackle box and you throw it to nobody, or it doesn't make it to the line of scrimmage inside the tackle box, then that's intentional grounding, right? As long as it's not at the... So... But yet you can spike the ball at the foot of linemen behind the line of scrimmage inside the tackle box. Like, why is that? Like, why is that okay? Why do you have to drop back 3 yards? You know, if that's the case, and I feel like any quarterback that's being rushed should, like, just step up back into the pocket to get to the line of scrimmage and just throw the ball on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't understand the difference between that. If that's the rules, then that's what you're doing to spike the clock, you know? Like, I feel like, in baseball, you always hear when there's 3 balls, you can just take the 4th one and go ahead and intentionally walk them or something like that, But that's something that's always bothered me. And if anybody's listening, please comment, email me at TitanAvengerGaming@gmail.com, and please let me know the more specifics of the rule or what you think about it. But what's your take on it? Like, do you see any difference in it, or do you know more about this rule than I do, Ron?
I don't know more about the rule. I feel like
It's kind of a loophole to help teams out.
I guess maybe.
Come on, you're my football guru.
Well, it feels. I would think that maybe it has something to do with. It has something to do with like what's actually happening during that play and everything. But
because I understand you want to stop the clock, you want to give a team a chance to, be able to have one more play after getting set up. Because I'm thinking, well, you could do what college does, and if they get a first down, you stop the clock, or, and I know there's more to it, but then again, there's a difference between NFL and college, with the 1 foot to 2 feet being in bounds, the having to be touched to be considered tackled, where college, if you fall down, then you're down, but like I've always thought about it, it's just crazy to me. Like, and I know anything can happen. It's kind of like when people are going to do the kneel to end the game. I don't like that. I'd rather just hand the ball off. I do it on my Madden game. I just hand the ball off. Which I know a fumble can happen. But then again, it's kind of like the people getting mad, even though you're technically going to win the game, when the defensive line wants to bull rush to try to have a chance of the quarterback fumbling. Everybody gets mad. Oh, that's great. They're just playing. The ball's hiked. They're trying to get through the strip, the ball, and which I understand. It's kind of like, a basketball team putting all their subs in at the end of the game. They're kind of saying, I give up, coach, and I get it. I really do. But it's kind of like, the other night I heard someone saying something about, I think it was the Packers or somebody was running up the score. I'm thinking, well, now it might not even been the Packers game, but all they're doing is handing the ball off. If you can't do the fundamentals to tackle somebody or block somebody to get through when they're just handing the ball off to run off the clock, it's kind of like in the Super Bowl last year. As much as I hate to say this, all Kansas City was doing was running the clock, and San Francisco could not make the tackles for that guy, Damian Williams, I think, to run down the sideline. He wasn't trying to get a touchdown. He was just running a simple play, bounce to the outside, and then he's going for a touchdown. That pretty much puts a nail in the coffin. And I hate it. But here's my other one. And we've talked about this while we were together. The fumbling under 2 minutes rule. It killed the team yesterday in the game. It was, which team did I say it was? Do you remember?
I don't know if it wasn't yesterday, but it was like last week, I think.
No, that was another game. There was one yesterday that I had talked to you about. Oh, Cleveland Browns game. Baker Mayfield is trying to do a quarterback sneak on 4th and 1. He fumbles it. Kareem Hunt picks it up and falls forward for the first down. Since it's under 2 minutes, Mayfield has to pick up the fumble. And so since he didn't pick up the fumble, the ball is dead at that spot that he fumbled, which was considered not a first down. So the other team gets the ball, the Jets get the ball, and the Browns lose.
Yeah.
Like what is your take on
that? That's just a dumb rule.
Like, I don't understand why they have to cover it. Like, there's no way that somebody can sit there and block 3 people and keep pushing people out of the way, especially 300-pound linemen. If you're a running back or a quarterback or even a receiver, keep pushing them up, trying to play keep away from them. It's like, come on, guys, somebody come over here, help me. Like, you can't do that. I don't understand why you can do it the entire game, but why the 2 minutes? I've never had anybody, and again, somebody wants to chime in and write us, feel free, but I don't understand why that rule was made under the 2 minutes. I get that there's booth reviews under 2 minutes, and I get other things that are under 2 minutes and a 2-minute warning. I got all that. But I just want to know why in the world, if there's a fumble, the person fumbling it has to get it. Because, everybody goes dirty. People start grabbing people and laying on people. People are going to lay on you. So you can't get the ball. I just don't. I've just never gotten any clarity on that.
I think sometimes it's just dumb rules.
Well,
I think that's what you just chalk it up to. There's really no rhyme or reason behind the rules at all. Or some of those rules. Like, there was a... it's kind of like... Well, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it's just chalk it up to there's sometimes the rules just don't make sense for the sake of it.
Yeah.
The committee gets together and they go, this sounds like a good idea. And then once you actually see it in play, it becomes a bad idea.
Well, it's kind of like, I feel there's two challenges that people can do: the spot of the ball, if it's a touchdown, things like that. I feel like there should be one challenge that's for penalties, that you can throw out there, and it could be used as a timeout too if it doesn't get challenged. But like they did the challenges for the pass interference, and that lasted a year. But like a holding call, if you think my person was being held, let me throw that out there, which I know that would stop the game a lot, but I'm just saying just one. So it needs to be a good one. You're giving people 2 challenges for spot of the ball and out of bounds, things like that. But I'm just talking about one penalty thing, because you'd be doing it all day. People be throwing it thinking they got held or pass interference. But I really think like there's some key moments, or you could say, or even say under 2 minutes. All things would be reviewed, because they're showing the instant replay of a possible interference while the people are going lining back up. And have the booth to do that, or have the booth always review and step in and be like, hey, y'all need to look at that again. Like there's some big plays. It happened in the Cowboys game, but I always thought about that. That'd be kind of cool if they looked at those reviews.
So I've been listening to you talk, but I've also been researching your question about the intentional grounding.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, what it comes down to, or it seems like it comes down to anyways, is just comes down to them, how long they've possessed the ball after they've touched the ball. So I'm serious. That's sort of what it comes down to. It's, like if you're going to spike the ball, because there's specific rules about spiking the ball, which are after you've possessed the ball, you have to, and you're going to spike it. And it is for purposes to control the clock. You have to spike it immediately. You can't just wait to spike it or anything like that. It has to be done right then and there, because if it's held onto and then it's spiked, then it does actually become intentional grounding. For instance, what a lot of these answers have brought up is, and this happened about 8 years ago, I believe, well, at least, or 9 years ago, in the Bears versus Raiders game, Caleb Henney, he took the snap to spike the ball, but he got confused on what he should do and hesitated. And then eventually he ended up spiking it. This is a person on Reddit who actually is a 49ers fan, but eventually ended up spiking it. Almost looked like he wanted a fake spike, but then decided against it. that was called intentional grounding, and the 10-second runoff ended the game. So if it's like if you're controlling the clock, you have to immediately spike it. But if you hold it for like a couple seconds, it's almost like I almost kind of attribute it as a non-basketball guy. I almost trying to kind of attribute it to a lane violation. You can't be in the lane for so long. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that's that feels like that's what's going on here. It's like, look, if you're going to spike it, then you have to do it immediately. You can't just wait or it becomes intentional grounding. But there are specific intentional grounding rules, and there are specific spiking the ball rules. And neither one of those explain why spiking the ball is okay versus the other, versus why it's not okay. It's just, these are rules for spiking, these are the rules for intentional grounding.
So I remember when the especially in college, when the whole 10-second runoff first came into play, because Tennessee was playing North Carolina for the bowl game. And North Carolina was coming down the field, and they were in field goal range, and they were going to spike it. But when they spiked it, their guys weren't all lined up. And so they had a penalty. Well, the penalty just backed them up 5 yards, which they're still in field goal range, but it stopped the clock for them. So they kicked the field goal and beat Tennessee in the bowl game. And then everybody threw a fit about it. Well, then next year there's a 10-second runoff if you have a penalty under the 2 minutes or whatever, or in the minute or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so I was like, of course, it would come up the year after my team loses a bowl game, which it makes sense because that's the case. People can find the loopholes, kind of like with, what was it, Alex Smith running off the field with the football, and they having to reset it and stop the clock. And, there's I've said this, there's loopholes to everything, and no matter what you do, you can find a way to get around it. Kind of like there's that A11 offense that's supposed to be like a super powerful offense. There was loopholes with the jersey numbers and stuff in football, and so they were you couldn't really tell who the linemen was compared to receivers. So the quarterback could just throw it to any person based on the receiver, and they were scoring, out will.
Yeah.
And that's where we were at. And now they've kind of tinkered the rules, and so that A11 offense is still good, but it's just not as potent.
Yeah.
And everybody tries to find a way to beat the system based on the rules.
Here's a fun fact. Speaking of kind of getting around the rules, a lot of these rules about spiking the ball, they say, or a lot of these people have been commenting on it, and I think the rule probably specifically says it, a spike is not considered intentional grounding if it is done with the quarterback under center and immediately after the snap. No penalty is assessed. I'm fairly certain I have seen a spike out of a shotgun formation, which doesn't make any sense if you're trying to do field position, but I'm fairly certain I've seen that once or twice.
Well, yeah. Want to say welcome to Luke, who is joining us. Right now we are talking about penalties or certain rules in the NFL that make no sense. But Ryan, going back to what you were saying, I think I've seen the spike too. I've also seen somebody like going out of shotgun and having a screenplay and somebody just all out blitzing because everybody shifts to start blocking for the running back.
Yeah.
And so it kind of leaves it where you think, oh, I'm fixing to get the quarterback. Oh, never mind. He passes to the running back. And I've seen somebody when the running back's not open, they throw it. I've even seen a penalty out of that because of the fact that the running back was not near because he just threw it at the, pretty much inside the tackle box. He didn't throw it at the running back because he didn't want to get sacked. And they've called a penalty. They're having to plead their case. No, the running back was there, But he held on to the ball maybe for a second because it was like an all-out blitz. So it's crazy, a half a second less. is not a penalty, but holding it for just 1 second is a penalty. So that's, which, like I said, it makes sense, I guess, for this, what you were bringing up for clock purposes, but it's just crazy when you hear the announcers or Mike Pereira or whoever it is on NFL talking about instant replays and is this a penalty or not?
Mm-hmm.
And they always say, oh, they're inside the tackle box or there's no one in the area. They always talk about that. They never talk about, was he holding it for 2.5 seconds? And so, I don't know, it's just one of mine, just like the whole fumbling rule. Luke, another one we talked about was, and it happened in this weekend's game, under 2 minutes. If you fumble the ball, you have to recover the ball. No one else on your team can recover the ball.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Because outside of the 2 minutes, it doesn't seem to matter. I mean, it won't matter who recovers it. It becomes, it's just lost possession.
Because I understand the whole knocking the ball forward and trying to cheat and knock it towards your teammate. I got that because it just needs to be someone getting on the ball. But like I was telling Ryan, if I'm being tackled and I fumble, then people are going to lay on me intentionally. Just like if you're trying to get down the field, no huddle because we're down by 3, we got to get in field goal range. People want to lay on that guy. That way he's slowly getting up and running time off the clock. And, they're going to do things. And if there's 5 men trying to go for the ball, you can't block every single one of them waiting for your teammate to get there. Like right. That little 200-pound running back isn't going to sit there and block 1,500 pounds of people.
Well, then you've also got other sports that basically have the same rule except in opposite. So you've got volleyball. And if you're going out of bounds and you hit the ball, you can't hit it again. Mm-hmm. It has one of your teammates that hits it. And then you've got basketball. You can't throw it. You can't save the basketball to yourself. It has to be a teammate that catches it. So I don't understand why, if you fumble it, you have to be the one to recover it. Why? That makes no sense. In fact, it should be the opposite.
Yeah,
whereas
it's like
fumble the ball, it should be almost required that your teammate gets it.
Well, and like in basketball, that is the same rule from tip-off to the last buzzer. Volleyball, from the first hit, but now it's football. Nope, not the last 2 minutes, And like Ron had said earlier, before you joined us, he just said it's just one of those rules that you just look at it and go, yeah, that's a dumb rule. Let's just put that in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the whole.
Like you shouldn't be able to. You can't progress the action. Like you can't fumble forward. I get that.
Yeah.
Like you were saying that there'd be a lot of cheating that goes on. But I also like so guy fumbles it, he goes out of bounds, and he didn't have possession. I feel like that should almost be treated as an incomplete pass. Like you just start over where the line of scrimmage was, and you just kind of lost the down. Rather than let me fumble it forward and slap it out of bounds, and then get it wherever it went out.
Yeah.
Or treat it like basketball, where the last person to touch it, it's out on them, so the other team gets possession at that point.
It's
like that would be just a loss of down.
I saw it a lot in some of the college football games, and there's not really a rule for it, but when someone fakes an injury, I get why. You're trying to save timeouts. You're trying to slow down a team. I hate it. I don't care if it's my team or another team. Like, I feel like you just need to wait till there's an incomplete pass. Somebody's run out of bounds and stop the clock. You've got to do something. Just if they're going to score in the next play, they score in the next play. I don't think you should fake an injury.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be something. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like flopping. They will call penalties and stuff for people that flop, in the NBA.
Yeah.
I feel like it should be the same thing if somebody's going to fake an injury.
When you're watching a basketball game and you see a guy going out of bounds and he throws the ball at one of the opposing team's players to knock it out on them so that he retains possession. I hate that play.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before, but I just feel like it is the most unclassy play in all of basketball. Because, and you're talking about rules that shouldn't be, because like you were talking about the spiking the football is intentional grounding, and it's really what it is. That rule in basketball, you cannot strike another player with the ball. You can't throw the ball at another player until you get to there.
Yeah.
You're going out of bounds, you can throw it at the other person's leg and hit them with it so that the ball's out on them. So it becomes more almost like an ethical issue, more so than anything else. Like, if you're a fair player, is your conscience going to allow you to make that play?
Yeah. Ryan, what you got?
I don't know. Agree.
Is there any plays, any rules in any sport or anything recently that you've seen that you thought you just didn't agree with?
I don't know about disagree with that we haven't already talked about. I mean, I've seen, and it's just across the board this year, in all across football, I've seen just bad decisions made on referees' part, but they're human. So at the end of the day, humans make mistakes. If anything, talking about rules, though, that can seem odd, I don't know if they're still technically... I don't know if there's still actually rules or anything, but I've always been a big fan of the rules that those obscure rules that can give you an advantage in the game if you choose to use them, and you have someone that can do it, like the kicking rules. Like there used to be kicking rules, like if you punt the ball and it hits the ground first, but you still kick it and it goes to the uprights, you can get like a point off of it.
Yeah.
Like it works like a field goal. I miss those rules. I miss those plays. Even though I've never actually seen one. I just know they exist, or they used to exist.
Well, it's
Drop
like
kick.
another thing that I thought would be cool, because I'm all about action. I love seeing people play out. Just like I was telling you earlier, I would be the person that would never kneel the ball. You know, I would tell my guy, you're fixing to hand it off and you're going to hold on to that ball. If that means you're going to fall down, you're going to fall down. But when, like on the kickoff, you know, if the ball's going in the end zone, well, if the ball's not in the end zone, if it lands at the 20-yard line, it's just like an onside kick. Anybody running down the field can get the ball, and it's your ball. You know, just like an onside kick. But if the ball kicks and touches the end zone, it's an automatic touchback. You don't have to down it. You know? And I just feel like, hey, if that team's not going to get the ball and it's just going to bounce right there in the end zone, I want to get in and get a touchdown.
Yeah, the other team should be able to fall on it and make a touchdown.
You know, because you're trying to...
It's a live ball.
Yeah, like, I don't understand why that's automatically dead. I'm sure that, you know, but then again, we try to make everything safe for quarterbacks. We try to make everything safe for kickoffs, and it's because of all these concussions and stuff like that. Like, I feel like by now, with everybody getting stronger and faster, there's got to be some kind of safety things we can do. They say that the helmets are better, but people are still getting concussions. You know, instincts, if somebody's lowering their head and somebody else is lowering their head and they hit, that's not a dirty play, but then again, they still get flagged. But then the inconsistency of someone slapping a quarterback on the top of the head is a personal foul. the 49ers game, Drew Brees, and I hate that he broke 100 ribs, but like the guy did not fully land on top of him. He landed to the side. It was just a great hit, and Drew Brees broke some ribs.
Yeah.
Then you have a play the next week against somebody, and I don't remember which team or what, but the guy just bear hugged him and laid flat on top of him like he was a mattress. Oh, that was a great hit. That's the best quarterback hit we've seen in years. You know, it's like, why is that not a penalty? So now, 49ers, it's just sour apples, I guess, because it's my team. But my team, that was like a third down play, and now they get an automatic first down because they tackled Drew Brees.
It really has to do with the wrapping up, because if you put your arms around him, it looks like a hug, and it's a much more emotionally friendly kind of tackle. That's really what it's got to be, right?
Yeah, it's got to be something.
Maybe hurting the quarterback's body, but you're protecting his emotions because he felt like, well, he did like me. He hugged me on the way down.
Like if your hand is out and your hand goes by and hits the, slaps the top of their helmet, then that's 15-yard penalty, personal foul, roughing the passer. I understand if they like really waylaid it, but if it's just tapping it, like Fitzpatrick the other night, how he made that pass, I don't know, but they grabbed his face mask and turned it to the side. Pretty much he's looking forward and the face mask is over here to the left. And he's, that was just called face masking, but I could see that roughing the passer. But
he said, just talking about that for a brief second, he said that he's thankful that the guy did that because when his head was moved like it actually corrected the pass. So he says the guy doing that actually made the pass be completed because he thinks he overthrew the guy.
Well, I could see that because the guy stopped and kind of came back, and plus the defender was going with him and was kind of still going, and the other defender kind of lost him as he went up the field because I think he was coming up to get the running back. So it was kind of like, that penalty helped everything.
Yeah, and the rules for targeting and the rules, I don't know if people think about this as much as I do in terms of the next rule, but the rules for targeting, they definitely do need to be revised or reformed, whatever you want to call it. And so do the rules for pass interference. Like, I'm almost tired of watching the game now. And, when someone throws the ball, it doesn't even feel like it's a 50-50 shot. It feels like it's like a 70, maybe 80-20 shot that there's going to be a pass interference play, or there's going to be a pass interference flag thrown. And at just some point, as someone who likes to watch the game, and I understand that, the teams use it to their advantages all the time, but if someone likes to watch the game, just every pass interference call, or so many pass interference calls, at certain points, it just feels like it slows the game down. It just kills momentum a little bit. Because especially when they have to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah. Well, talking about the rules, like the whole catch rule in, just in NFL, like it's the craziest thing to me because in all honesty, was Dez Bryant's catch a catch? Yes, it was a great catch.
It was. See, and I'm not even a Cowboys fan, and that one ticked me off.
I know. But by rule, it was an incomplete pass. And Dallas Cowboy fans out there, they're going to say, no, it was a catch. Well, yeah, because your team had a chance to go to the Super Bowl. But when Dez Bryant made the catch, like my example I give people is if I stumble over something and I make 3 more steps trying to catch my balance, I didn't do those 3 steps. That is me trying to catch my balance. And Dez Bryant was falling forward, not because he's making steps. The lunge he made to the goal line was not the lunge of him controlling himself. And so when he landed, he didn't make the process, is what they call it. He didn't make a football move, and so the ball comes loose, and then they go, oh, he recovered it. Well, but he never made a catch. So if he didn't make a catch, there wasn't a fumble, which means he didn't get the touchdown. You know, because that same year, earlier in that year, or the year before, Calvin Johnson, you know, and Ron, your dad's a Bears fan. The Lions were going against the Bears, and Megatron went up, I think one-handed, caught the ball in the back of the end zone, came down with it, landed on his butt, and you know pretty much that's considered being down. One-handed, came down as he rolled around, and anybody listen, go look on YouTube, Calvin Johnson, no catch. I think you can look that up. But got the ball, was rolling over, and as he gets up, he's celebrating and throws the ball up in the air. He did not make a football move that was considered an incomplete pass. But he caught it one-handed, never bobbled it, landed on his butt, but did not complete the process. And so, but, you know, they've modified it up, you know, and it's just like breaking the plane. You know, if you jump over, never step your feet in the, you know, only the tip of the ball has to be over the white part of the end zone, and that's a touchdown. None of your body does. Your whole body could be laying in the end zone. The ball's sitting there at the 1 yard line sticking out, and it's not a touchdown. You know, it's all about where the ball's at. So that's just another rule, which they've critiqued it some and made it better. But, you know, it's like Luke said, I'm not a Cowboys fan either, but, you know, I'll say you got robbed, but then again, I've ruled it wasn't really wasn't a catch.
Yeah, and just kind of an overall recap of all this. I love watching tackle football and all that kind of stuff, but in my opinion and opinions of lots of others, it's just gotten too protective of the offense. Like if I'm playing a ping pong game, right? We're playing ping pong, and all of a sudden a 300-pound man tackles me. I didn't expect that. I didn't know that was going to be part of the game. I'm not ready for it. There's going to have to be some kind of penalty on that, because that's not what I was ready for. But if you're a quarterback in the NFL, you went through probably high school football, you probably made it into college football, and now you're in the pro football. You are expecting other men to be on that field, pursuing you, trying to tackle you. There is no reason that you should be unaware that is what's going on. And yet we've got so many rules set up to protect these quarterbacks, because you can't possibly, like, I know they've got their arms up, so they may be not ready. They may be tackled at a weird angle. They're not ready for it. The hit came out of nowhere. But dang it, that's what we love about football.
Yeah.
Is that there is going to be some tackle. There is going to be an impressive hit. One of my favorite things to watch is not the catches from the receivers coming downfield. It's the fullback or a running back or another wide receiver who makes a spectacular block for that one to really get a good catch and possibly a touchdown or something like that. But I love to see the hits. And most people do that watch football. They're watching for those big hits. And I know you don't want to put your quarterback in a compromised position, but that's why he's got up to 7 people on the line protecting him, and probably people in the backfield. Like, he's got ample protection. You feel like your running back could turn at you and say, "Watch out." And that would be as much notice or protection as what you could possibly get. But, you know, putting penalty after penalty on the defense for trying to tackle the quarterback, and oh my goodness, they tackled him wrong. They fell on him when they tackled him. I don't know if you've ever tried to tackle anybody. How do you not lay on them when you tackle them?
Yeah.
At some point, you just got to be like, this is what football is. If you go any further than this, you're really taking away what we expect from football, what we love about football. and you're replacing it with, I mean, why not just play flag football at that point, which I really liked. I loved playing flag football, but when I'm watching professional football or tackle football, that's what I want to see, is the tackle part.
Ryan, you got any feedback?
Oh, I agree 100%. Like, I mean, every year it's more difficult on defenses to play.
Yeah. And now I know a couple years ago the Chiefs and Rams game that was on Sunday night or Monday Night Football, a high-scoring game. Everybody's like, oh, all that game was offense. There was like 2 or 3 touchdowns that were defensive touchdowns. It was just a great back-and-forth game. But all right, last thing for tonight. No, y'all aren't really ready for this, but there's a lot of different scenarios for the last couple seeds. The Bills are probably going to win. They're up 38-9 last time I checked. So they're going to pretty much clinch that division. The Chiefs have clinched their division. The Steelers
clenching their butt cheeks.
Yeah. Steelers going to clinch theirs. But you have the Titans and Colts, both 10-5. Who's going to clinch that division?
They play next week.
Who they play?
Who do they play next week?
Let's see. The Titans play at Houston. So Houston has Deshaun Watson, who hurt himself. I haven't heard the latest on that. Do we know the latest on that?
No.
So he got hurt. J.J. Watt's called out some of his teammates and not trying hard. So I don't know how that's going to go.
They're both going to win next week.
But then you got Jacksonville at the Colts. I feel like the Colts have the easier matchup.
I think they're both going to win next week.
I think they will too. Right now, they're both tied, so I would guess that means the Titans are above them. So I would guess the Titans have the tiebreaker, where they would be switched right now. So if they win, then Titans will go there.
This almost becomes like the college football playoffs, where you're looking at teams that have like Texas A&M, that has a super difficult schedule, and they did well with it, but they have more losses than Coastal Carolina, who's 10-0 or something like that. But they have a less difficult schedule going on, and so, I mean, the NFL, when it comes down to it, you're probably looking at just wins and losses. You're not, because you're playing all other professional teams, but I think if you beat Jacksonville, who hasn't?
Yeah.
And if you are a team that's playing, another closely ranked team, and you pull that victory off, I think that says more about your team, and I think you go ahead of the person who won the cupcake match.
Well, when they do the tiebreaker thing, it usually goes if they've swept each other or what their rankings were between each other in the season. So I guess either Titans have swept. I don't know. I'm not looking at their schedule, but somewhere the Titans are in first, depending on the tiebreaker there. In the NFC, the only division that is, well, 2 of the divisions are clinched. The NFC East is still up for grabs. The Eagles are the only ones that are officially out. Have the Saints won that tiebreaker because they beat the Buccaneers, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, they won this last weekend. Of course,
so
they
if Saints,
Kamara 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara won by himself. He got 30. He outscored 36 and 33. But if Saints lose, that makes them 11-5. If Buccaneers win, they're 11-5. So, but I think Saints, they dominated Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers only had like 7 points, if that's the game I'm thinking about.
So they
should have to clinch that. So So is Giants going to make it? So here's the scenario for the Giants. Giants clinch the NFC East if they win their game in Washington. I think the Giants play the Eagles and the Cowboys play the football no-name team, right?
Yeah.
So if the Cowboys win, which makes them 7-9, I don't understand how. Wait, so Washington and Cowboys play each other? Is that right?
They did. I mean, they played early in the season, I think.
Well, but I mean, are they playing this week?
No, I'm gonna go down a list of games if you want me to.
Well, who's Washington playing?
Washington's playing the Eagles.
So Washington's playing the Eagles.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's the Giants playing?
The Cowboys.
Okay, so I had them backwards. So if Giants beat the Cowboys, makes them both 6-10. If Washington loses to the Eagles, which is possible, they're 6-10. So Giants jump from third to first in their division, not overall. You can't do that for 6-10. So Giants have to win, Washington has to lose. And that clinches their division. For the Bears, which the Bears are still there with them making a little bit of a run here recently, they have to have 3 things to clinch a playoff berth. They have to win, or Arizona has to lose, or Chicago and Arizona tie.
I don't think Arizona is going to beat the Rams.
Why not?
They're not going to have Kyler Murray.
Well, Goff is not going to play either.
That is true.
And
but
Henderson's out.
The Rams' defense is better than the Cardinals' defense, if I'm correct. And I think it's going to be a more difficult time for the for the Cardinals to win that game of the Rams.
I think it's almost Arizona's game to lose.
Like, I feel like Kyler Murray's going to have to play this MVP season like they thought. And it's funny how everybody focused on Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, how they were MVPs for like the first 8 games. And no one's really talked about Aaron Rodgers until like the last couple weeks, when everybody's realizing, oh crap, he's got like 40 touchdowns and like 3 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And his team's
he's got
12-3.
He's got such a dynamite receiving core still. I mean, and both of them do. That's how all 3 of these quarterbacks have made it this far in the season, is by having this great receivers. They've got places to go with the ball. They don't have to run it. Kyler Murray's dangerous on his feet anyway. Jared Goff, not so much. But
well, see, I think Seahawks and Cardinals have more weapons at the receivers than the Packers do. Because even Jared Goff, Cooper Kupp has not been Cooper Kupp.
I think, and don't get me wrong, I love Devontae Adams because I picked him up his rookie year and I hoped that he was going to become something great, and he just did. He was a flexed player to start with for my team. But he's really he's come into his own. He's probably, I guess I could just go ahead and say it, he's probably the number 1 receiver in the NFL at this point. Aaron Rodgers seems to find him everywhere on the field. I think it's been at least 3 or 4 games since he's scored below 40 points.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about fantasy football. So it's been a while since
I've watched
fantasy football. He's always beating his projection. He's been one of the rocks on my team that's really helped me pull through a couple key wins and stuff like that. And you just can't seem to stop him.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting because I've seen a couple years ago there's one team that needed help from like 4 different games for them to just make it to the playoffs, and everything happened, and they ended up making it. I don't remember who it was, but I remember when like 2 or 3 of those things happened, I was like, oh, this could turn out to be pretty good, and then it did. They made it. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially with a lot of teams on the line. Some teams are going to be resting their players because they've already clinched the first round bye or they've clinched the playoff berth. I know The Chiefs have already been talking about resting their players, which it looks like Hill has been unhealthy. Give Mahomes maybe a little bit of break. So you can rest your whole starting lineup. Take a chance at everybody getting an extra week off, because that means you're going to give them an extra 2 weeks to stay healthy with having the first round bye and getting the hamstring issue. But that just means you need to be doing what's right in practice and stuff too, by not overdoing it.
I am amazed that an NFC East team can potentially go to the playoffs with a losing record.
So let's finish with that real quick.
Say it's almost been that way for several years though. Like there's no real competition in that division.
Well, let's talk about that. So should a person that wins their division with a losing record be allowed to go? Or should it just be based on overall records? Like technically, if you look at it, the team that has at least 6 wins is the NFC West. The Lions are close to being at least 6 wins in NFC North, but everybody in NFC West has at least 6 wins. So should it be by record? You just take the top 7 teams. Because see, in this case right now, you have the Seahawks. Well, you're gonna have 4 teams. Then you're gonna have, let's say, the Buccaneers possibly, and then the Rams, and then possibly the Bears. Let's say the Bears. So that means you're gonna have, I don't know who's playing who, so I'd really have to sit down and look at it. But you have the 49ers, who, if they win their game, will be 7-9. They will have a better record than the possible winner of the NFC East. If the Giants make it, they go 6-10. The 49ers will have a better record. The Cardinals will have a better record. The Vikings, don't know who they're playing. The Bears, if they don't make it, those are all teams that would have a better record than the winner of the NFC East. So what's your thoughts on that before we end the night, Ryan?
I think the only downside to that is that it makes conferences not as important. So
it's kind of like, why try?
Well, why have a conference at all? Like if you don't win your conference and you don't get a chance to go into the playoffs, there would be no point in conferences.
Yeah.
And by conference, I really mean divisions, not necessarily conferences.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. So, look, what do you think?
I don't know. I think the divisions are there in order to, your division is there to, I would say make it fair, but it's really not. They're there to give you some semblance of hope. So if you are, let's say, if you're in the NFC East, right, and you are Philadelphia, and you're at the bottom of your conference, there's still something to try for. There's still effort to be put out there because you can get somewhere. So you don't end up with a bunch of hopeless teams who have no shot at being in the playoffs at all. So what you're doing is you're cultivating effort, basically, until the very last moment of the season. Because who wants to watch the last week of football or last 2 weeks of football if there's nothing, there's no hope, there's no chance, there's no effort put out by those teams? Like we know they're professional, but part of being professional is you don't quit before the finish line. And so by having these divisions in the conferences, that's what you're getting, is you're getting a push all the way to the finish.
Well, and you also got to think about the huge run Marshawn Lynch had for the Seahawks, where he's just shoving the Saints guys by 8 of them and scores a touchdown. They win. That team was a losing record team. That was before the Seahawks became the Legion of Boom, and you had a good defensive team with the Cardinals and before the 49ers turned around, before the Rams got better. And that team was a losing record, went into a winning team in the Saints and beat them, So there are all those underdogs now. There hasn't been a losing team to make it to the Super Bowl and win, but there also was never a 16th ranked team to knock off a number one team in March Madness which, 1 out of 12 million of those games ever played, but it finally happened. It was going to happen sometime. I guess it kind of goes into like the SEC any tournament for college basketball. Your team could go 0 forever and then show up the weekend of the conference tournaments and over a 4-day span win 4 games in a row, which is highly unlikely if you're 0-20, but you can win that tournament and you get an automatic bid. So a team that went 25-5 gets no shot because this team now that went 0-30 is now 4-30 and they get an automatic bid. I've never thought that was kind of crazy to me too, but then again, I don't make all the big bucks to make those decisions.
So no, I think you take the best teams from each conference, NFC, AFC, and you let them duke it out. Like, I get it. You're trying to create hope to the end, but if you're a professional football player, you've got to be professional. So you've got to give that effort all the way to the finish line. Mm-hmm. So does anybody really want to see the NFC East? You know what I mean? Like, that's where your lowest performing teams are. So why not give it to Chicago? Why not give it to Tampa Bay? Why not give it to the Rams and the Seahawks? Instead, or even Arizona, who's 6-5, give it to one of those teams because they kind of earned it more so than the others.
Well, it's like, in all honesty, there's no telling where they would be at because they weren't doing the greatest at the beginning of the year. But in all honesty, the most talented team is the Cowboys. And if it wasn't for Dak Prescott getting hurt, who was throwing 400 yards a game and stuff like that, there's no telling where they would be. Now, I think they wouldn't be a 10-win team. I think they'd probably be 9-6 right now. But, they should just be rolling away with this conference or this division. It should be kind of like how the Packers are right now, or how the Saints have been in numerous years, because the Falcons will have one good year and then they'll be down. The Panthers have one good year. The Buccaneers have just been kind of average every year, especially with Jameis Winston there. So it's always been the Saints, kind of like with the whole Patriots, their dynasty kind of ended, but the Dolphins would beat them once a year and the Buffaloes might beat them. And when Rex Ryan was with the Jets, he might beat them, but nobody can actually win the division, Well, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Ron, do you got any last thoughts? Doesn't have to be on what we talked about. It could be on anything.
Any last thoughts I have are amending who I picked last time for the Super Bowl. I'm beginning to lean a little bit into the Bills and the Packers.
That'd be a pretty interesting Super Bowl. Especially when you think they were talking about tonight, talking about Stephon Diggs and how many catches he has in yards, and one of the announcers was really surprised because they're like, "You're talking about Andre Reed? Never had those kind of stats." And they said that Andre Reed's best season was 85 catches. But then again, it's a different league. We're breaking more yardage records. We're throwing for 4,000 yards more. We're throwing 35, 40 touchdowns. Like Joe Montana, I don't know if Joe Montana ever threw for 30 touchdowns in a year, but he's considered one of the greatest quarterbacks. And he still threw. Like, he, had the record for most touchdowns in Super Bowls. He only played in 4, like we talked about earlier. But, the Bills and their defense, and they don't have the running game, but like Josh Allen is he's making it happen. and I really feel like that could be a good possibility. They could go into Kansas City and shock them.
And just to build off of what you said, Randy, when I'm looking at the AFC, the NFC, I think, comes down to Green Bay versus New Orleans. Like, they're the 2 favorites, and they've got a pretty balanced approach on both sides. Green Bay's defense is probably a little under New Orleans' defense, so if it comes down to just defense, I think New Orleans gets the edge. But when I'm looking at the AFC, I like Buffalo, but I don't know how they've got kind of if you look at Kansas City's offense, you don't know where that ball is going to go. They've got enough of a running game to keep you on your toes. But when it comes to passing, Mahomes has Travis Kelce, he's got Tyreek Hill. He can even throw it to Hilaire. So you don't really know where it's going. You've got 3 to 4 guys to cover, whereas it seems like Buffalo, all you hear is Diggs. So if you've only got the one receiver and you can somehow manage to keep him double or triple covered, you kind of eliminate that facet of their gameplay. And if you can control their passing, then it all becomes running.
Yeah.
So as far as it really will come down to defense on that side of the ball. And Buffalo, I think, has the edge on the defense, but with a limited or seemingly limited offense, you've got to question Buffalo a little bit.
I agree. I think it's going to be exciting. A lot of people, last year it was going to be the Ravens, and they didn't make it. So it's always crazy. And then, Patriots were always the team that was up there to go back, and then they would make it or they wouldn't make it. Same thing with Peyton Manning being at the Colts all the year. They were always a team to be talked about. But like I said, we will see in a couple weeks who starts making their run towards it. Well, that will be it for tonight. We plan on having another podcast soon. We're fixing to go into the new year, hoping for everything to settle out, have more sports, have that keep going, maybe a full basketball season this time with March Madness and whatnot. Luke, thank you for joining us and chiming in with your information. Ryan, thank you for hosting again so we can be able to keep doing these.
No problem.
For anybody that's listening, again, feel free to comment and give us any feedback. If you have a topic you like us to chat about, don't hesitate to let us know. Look forward to having Ross and David back for our next podcast. Hopefully they'll be here. They had some prior engagements they had to take care of tonight, so we couldn't have them. Anyways, appreciate for everybody that's listening, and we will chat at you later.